New year, new you. If you are somebody who wants to improve your mental health in 2021, I'm going to teach you how to find a therapist that is good for you. Step one, why now? What is it about now that is making you want to seek therapy services? Is there something in your life that just isn't going the way that you thought it would go? 2020, anyone? Or maybe you just have more stress coming at you. Again, 2020, anyone? There might be circumstances that you weren't expecting that caught you by surprise, like a breakup or a death of a loved one, or maybe you just didn't get into the college of your dreams. You might not even be able to figure out why it is that you're feeling the way you do. You just know that you want to feel differently. So one of the ways that I recommend that you go about this is by asking yourself this question. If you were to go to bed tonight and by some miracle, some magical thing happened and all your problems and struggles and worries just disappeared. When you woke up that next morning, what would life look like for you? What would be different? What would be the same? Would you have things that you're having more of or less of? This will help you get clear on what it is that you're actually looking for therapy to help you with, and help you find a therapist who specializes in the areas that you need help with. So we are not one size fits all. For example, I do not specialize in treating substance abuse or addiction. Now, not everybody who struggles with that is aware that that's what it is that they're struggling with, and that's where your first meeting can be really helpful. But you can get a leg up if you just take some time and get real with yourself about what issues are impacting you the most and where you would like things to be different by the time you complete therapy. Step number 2. Check in on your health insurance and your budget for therapy. Knowing what your health insurance covers and doesn't cover when it comes to therapy services and what therapists in your area work with that insurance will make the search so much easier and save you a lot of time and effort if you just get that information up front. Step number 3. Start your search. Searching for a therapist is a lot like searching for a romantic partner or a friend. You don't always know where to start, but one of the best places to start is by asking the people that you know, love, trust, and respect who they think a good fit for you would be. Now, again, you want to make sure that this is a trustworthy and supportive individual that has good judgment because you're going to be trusting that they can respect your privacy and confidentiality with this information if you're not ready to just totally expose yourself. Just know that they may also hold you accountable and ask how your search is going. Just like dating apps, there are actually therapist profiles available online on search directories like Good Therapy or Psychology Today or Therapy Den, Therapy for Black Girls. There's lots of different therapy directories out there, so you don't have to necessarily limit your search to just one, but there's also just good old plain google.com. One of the questions that we actually ask everyone who calls the office for information about how to work with me is, how did they find out about us? And the number one way, hands down, over and over again, is good old Google. Google is great too because you can put in different search factors like specialty area or location. Now, in the United States of America, our licensing laws tend to be by state, at least at the time that this video is being recorded. I hope that it changes at some point, but we're not quite there yet. So you need to make sure that wherever you're searching, the person is also licensed in your particular area where you will physically be located at the time of service. This is not your primary residence, it's actually your physical location. That's because licensing laws are made to protect the people in that actual state. So it's kind of like if you were to steal a candy bar in Ohio and you get caught, even though you might be a resident of New Jersey, they're still going to prosecute you under Ohio laws, not New Jersey laws. Same thing goes for mental health licensing. Step number 4, get to know and feel out the different therapists. So you can actually start to get to know different therapists by checking out their profiles or their websites. A lot of therapists, even if they don't have a YouTube channel like me, do have some sort of video on their website now, which can showcase their personality and therapy style. You'll start to get a feeling for getting to know them, but also, do you like them and how they help? Do you trust that they're a good provider for your needs? Now, you won't get that all just from Google and websites. You'll also have to schedule what's called a client assessment appointment. Now, that first appointment is all about getting to know each other and seeing if you're the right fit for each other. It's kind of like a first date. You might see their profile on a dating app and be like, oh, okay, they are speaking my language. But then you show up and maybe they're just not a vibe. Now, just like dating, always recommend that don't always go based on that first date. You might want to give them a few tries to see if there's room to grow in that relationship or not, if you're interested in a relationship. Therapy is not like a hookup situation. We're not like dip in, dip out. It really is a relationship, so you're gonna want to invest a little more time and energy to see if it's a good fit. And just like in dating, as much as you are getting to know them, let the therapist get to know you too. And then this leads me to step number 5. And that is assess and reassess. We know that relationships change and grow over time, as they should. The people who got you to where you are today may not be the same people to get you to where you're going tomorrow. And the same is true for therapy. Sometimes we outgrow that relationship. Sometimes the help that we need morphs and changes into a new direction. Therapy is one of those unique relationships where you want to talk to your therapist about what's changing and what you need. We're weird that way in that we actually like to celebrate with you when it's time to move on. Whether you've accomplished all the goals that you've set out to complete in therapy, or your needs and circumstances have changed and you're ready to try out a different form of help. We're here to celebrate you and all of your success. You guys are really loving when I'm answering your questions. This one's a little bit of a two-parter. It's a short question, but it's got a lot of information in there that I'm ready to share with you. This viewer asks, I've been wondering how much therapy for teens costs and if your insurance can cover the costs. I absolutely love this question because it doesn't assume that the cost for therapy is only financial. And I'm going to address that in this video. So let's jump into it. The 4 main costs to consider when starting therapy are time, energy, commitment, and of course financial. Your time is a valuable, precious commodity, and we only get the same 24 hours in every day. As a teenager, your life is really busy. There's a lot of your time that's already accounted for, so there's not a lot of flexibility in how you can use your, I'm gonna say, free time, because even your free time is obligated to things like completing your homework and your chores and just making sure you get enough sleep in the night. And let's not forget keeping up with your friends, right? Anyone else feel crunched for time or time challenged? So one of the things that you want to factor in is not only is this a good time for you to show up and start therapy, but do you have the time in your schedule to show up for 1 hour a week to get you started? Because that's usually the commitment that we ask from you up front. If you don't have that weekly availability yet, I would start looking at your calendar and your schedule to see where you could potentially free up some of that time and space before you call for that first appointment. Or if you're under 18, having your parents call. Another consideration that you need to factor in is your energy. Therapy is emotional and it is active. It is not a passive, like sit back and let the therapist just kind of like work their magic on you. I would love to think that we have that power and ability, but we don't. I know that very well. Yeah, we're just catching everybody's problems. We totally are there with you and involved in the therapy process with you, but it does take a certain level of motivation and energy because you need to be doing the work and the skills that we're teaching you. So whenever you are trying or starting something new, it takes a little more effort and energy than after you're used to it. If you watch a young child learning how to walk, you'll notice that they're really deliberate most of the time in how they step one foot in front of the other. They might be a little wobbly, they might really make that concentrating face like they are trying so hard to stay standing. And that's because it is working new thinking and muscle groups that they haven't had to use before. So making sure that you have enough energy to sustain what you need to in therapy is really important too. And if you don't have that quite yet, but you are willing to get there, working with a therapist can help get you there as well. So this is probably the least talked about but most important cost to therapy for teens, and that is your ability to commit. Commitment. I know that our relationship world tends to be commitment averse at the moment, especially when you are a teenager, young adult. You just want to live life and be free and like do what you want, which is totally fine if that's your jam. But if you are going to start therapy, you really have to stay committed to the process in order to see the results that you want. So that means keeping your scheduled appointments, making an effort to work on the things that you're working on in therapy outside of the therapy room, making sure that you are invested in letting your therapist know what's working and not working so that we don't keep recreating the same wheel thinking that you're getting benefit out of it. Commitment means showing up with an open heart and a willing mind. If you're able to do that, then you are ready for therapy. And of course, the big cost that we usually think of when it comes to therapy is financial. So mental health therapy is a health service, which means that in exchange for providing this treatment, you do financially compensate the therapist. It costs a lot of time and money and investment to obtain this knowledge and then be able to practice it with other people. It's really making sure that the therapist is well taken care of so that they can then take care of you and your mental health needs. If you are looking for help or support getting started with mental health therapy for whatever situation you're dealing with, you might want to share this video with your parents if they're concerned about financial costs or investment or how to start therapy. Like we talked about in last week's video, one of the main costs of therapy is financial, which is where insurance can potentially help out. So real quick, before we dig into this, I need to just point out that I am not an insurance expert. The best person to talk about when it comes to seeing how your insurance can potentially cover the financial aspects of paying for therapy is your insurance provider themselves. And that's because each person's insurance provider and plan under that insurance provider may look a little bit different because it's catered to you or your family's needs. In the United States of America, we do have what's called the mental health parity, which means that legally speaking, at the time of this video, insurance providers must provide equal or similar coverage for benefits of mental health, behavioral, or substance use conditions as they do for other health conditions. So just quick note that equal coverage does not equal good coverage. It just means comparable or similar. In-network coverage is typically the most easy to understand because it's the most widely used use of your health insurance coverage for health services. So what this means is that when somebody is considered in network with your insurance plan, they have a written contract with the insurance provider that they will accept the rate that the insurance will pay them in exchange for their members being able to access services with that provider. So that means, like, say for example, you have ABC insurance. Yes, I'm making up a health insurance because insurance plans are all different and I don't want you to mistake the example for an actual insurance provider. ABC insurance, you go to their website or you go to a provider's website and you look and see, do they accept ABC insurance as direct payment? If they do, that means that they are in network. And so you would just follow whatever coverage plan your insurance says that they cover for in-network services. So this may mean meeting a deductible, may mean paying a copay. It may mean something completely different. Check with your insurance provider directly. Now, many mental health therapists actually prefer to work on what's called an out-of-network basis. So out-of-network means that they are still licensed, able to provide the services that your insurance may or may not cover, but it would be under what's called an out-of-network coverage benefit. That means that that provider does not have a contract with that insurance. So you would pay for the services up front and then seek reimbursement from your insurance provider out of your out-of-network coverage benefits. If you have the letters PPO or POS on your insurance card, you more likely than not have out-of-network benefits. If you're not sure if you have out-of-network coverage or what that looks like for mental health services, I want you to call Member Services on the back of your card, and you want to ask these 3 questions. Question number 1, do I have out-of-network benefits or coverage on my plan for behavioral or mental health services? Now, some insurances classify mental health therapy under behavioral health. So if you don't use that language, they might say no when they really mean yes. If you do, then ask, what is my coverage and what is your reimbursement policy? This is where they'll tell you if you have to meet a certain out-of-pocket deductible before they start reimbursing for a portion or all of the out-of-pocket costs, similar to your car insurance. So many of us, if you have car insurance, you have a deductible so that if you end up in an automobile accident or you need to use your automobile insurance for any reason, you have to pay up to a certain out-of-pocket cost before your automobile insurance coverage kicks in. The same is true for health insurance coverage. And then the third question, this requires a little research. If you already have a mental health diagnosis, you want to have that actual diagnosis and preferably the DSM-5 code that goes along with it so that your insurance provider can look up specifically for that diagnosis what they are willing to cover and not cover. Now, I don't know why they get so nuanced with the different insurance coverages, but they do. So make sure that you are referencing the right codes when you are asking for what your insurance provider specifically reimburses for. And if you happen to know the session rates for those codes, even better, because then you can get exact numbers. That was a doozy. So the third option is a little more complicated, and that is called a single case agreement, or sometimes referred to as an out-of-network exception. So there may be extreme circumstances where if you don't have out-of-network coverage or the out-of-pocket cost is so extreme to access the services that you so desperately need, your insurance may be willing to enter into what's called a single case agreement with you or the provider. So what this means is that even though the plan that you have previously signed up for with your insurance provider dictates that you may or may not have certain coverage options, if you are needing to see somebody who is highly specialized or trained, or you're having difficulty locating an in-network provider, or their in-network providers do not work with your population or specific issue, you may be eligible for requesting a single case agreement to work with your preferred provider. Now, this is not a guarantee. It often requires a clinical letter of support. For example, I happen to be one of few therapists in this area in Connecticut where I currently practice that runs group therapies for teenagers. Because of that, if somebody cannot find another provider to provide that level of care and support, and it's deemed medically necessary for them to engage in that level of treatment and care, then they may be eligible for pursuing that single case agreement. Ultimately, though, your insurance provider gets to decide whether they want to engage in that level of support with you or not. And in this video, I'm going to be answering this viewer's question. I haven't talked to my therapist since the beginning of quarantine. Now the thought of telling her I need her again makes me anxious. What can I do? I love doing these videos so much because the whole reason why I created this channel was to help you improve your mental health. I love this question so much because, of course, as a mental health therapist, we want our clients to feel better and more secure and confident in themselves. We don't want you to be dependent or over-reliant on therapy. That being said, the lifespan of many individuals is pretty long, which leaves a lot of opportunity for new stressors and anxiety to pop up that could reactivate an old wound. So the first thing that I want you to just take a moment and do is just stay curious about why you might be feeling anxious about returning to therapy. Is there any sort of benefit or guidance that your anxiety is trying to give you? Now remember, anxiety is a total normal response to any overwhelming change or stress. That's totally okay. It can feel a little awkward about re-engaging with something that you thought that you had already completed. So ask yourself, why would I feel anxious about returning to my therapist? I mean, given the circumstances, 2020 has been a wild, rocky year. I think we can all agree on that. We've been in the middle of a global pandemic. Depending on what area of the world or country, we've had different parts of the world on fire. We've had here in America a huge social movement. Black Lives Matter has really risen to really mainstream attention. It's really brought a lot of racial and social injustices that have been active here in America for a long time. And all of that brings up really strong emotions, not just for us, but for other people around us too. As therapists, we know that life happens. We don't expect you to be 100% perfect 100% of the time. Honestly, if you found working with your therapist helpful in the past, most of us would be happy to work with you again. There's some benefit in returning to your previous therapist because you already have an established relationship, or what we call a therapeutic alliance. You don't have to necessarily get used to each other, maybe a little bit again, but they already know a little bit of your history because they've walked alongside you for a part of your life already. And what's really cool is that if you've already successfully completed therapy with a therapist, you already know that that's possible again. Pretty cool, right? Now, I'm not too sure why returning to therapy in and of itself gets a bad rap, because with other health conditions, we go back to the same specialist or doctor all the time. If you didn't already know, I've actually broken my arm 4 separate times up until this point. I hope that's it. I think I've broken it enough at this point. It's been like through some wild experiences. Each and every time that I broke my arm, I didn't say,
you know what? I already broke my arm and it was healed, so I'm not going to go back to the doctor again now that I've broken it again.
No, of course I didn't. I went back to the doctor. And there's going to be some times where, depending on where the injury or concern is occurring, you might be able to return to that same doctor, or they might have to refer you to somebody who's more specialized in that area of the body. The same is true with mental health therapy. So if you are experiencing a new resurgence of a problem, or it's manifesting in a new manner, your previous therapist may be able to help you out, but they may decide with you, along with you, that you could benefit from somebody who's more specialized in that area of what you're going through. So let's go back to my arm example. Yes, I broke it 4 separate times. And 2 of those times, I was able to go to the same doctor because it was the same area of my arm that was broken. It was in my my hand and wrist area. 3rd time that I broke my arm, it actually was over in like my upper shoulder area. And so because of that, the doctor who I previously gone to for these breaks said that he had another doctor in his practice that would be much better equipped to handle what this injury was all about because he specialized in this area of the arm. So that's what I did. And I have to say, I think my arm's doing pretty good. Like, I can move it around, right? They did a nice job. And please keep in mind that we want to help you. We know that asking for help is hard, and it's why we do what we do. For most teenagers, in order for you to start seeing a therapist, you need your parents' permission. I've got an awesome strategy called Dear Man to help you ask. So Dear Man is an awesome skill set to use when you want to ask for what you want and you want to be effective in getting people to give you what you're asking for. That could be having them respect your no. It could be asking to borrow a pencil, or in this case, it could be asking your parents to take you to see a therapist. So we're going to go through each of these different skills to help you get there. So the dear part of Dear Man is what you say, and the man part is how you say it. D stands for describing the situation. This is short and sweet. What is the current circumstance that's even making you want to ask for this? In this case, you're going to describe the situation that's causing you to want to seek therapy from the start. So if you're somebody who's been really struggling with anxiety to the point that it's impacting your sleep, you want to say, so I've been having a lot of trouble sleeping. If you are asking for therapy because you just feel angry and irritable all the time, you want to share, so I've been really struggling with my anger and irritability all the time. See how that works there? Just very factual, to the point, something that y'all can agree on. E stands for expressing your thoughts and opinions. This is not where you tell and shout at your parents that they need to do this for you. Please don't do that. That is not going to be useful or helpful here. But you can share what your thinking and interpretation of this experience is. This is an excellent time to use I statements and speak from an I perspective, which means that you're not telling other people what they think and feel about the situation. You're just sharing your own personal thoughts and opinions. So in this situation, you might say, I've been doing some research and I've noticed that therapy can help people who are struggling with this. You'll obviously want to personalize this to your style of speaking. You don't necessarily want to use my words because I'm not you. And you're not me. A stands for ask for it. So if you are wanting to see a therapist, you literally have to use the words and ask for it specifically. Don't leave it up to interpretation. Don't leave it up to your parents to guess what it is that you want or what you think would be useful or helpful, or they'll fill in the blanks the best way they can, and it might not match what you want. Again, clear is kind here. Be direct, be clear. Say exactly what it is that you're asking for. R stands for rewarding the other person. So a lot of times we come up with these big arguments and scenarios about what would convince us to give us what we want, but that's not really useful or helpful when you're talking to somebody else because they have their own experiences and their own way of thinking about things. So I want you to think about, from your parents' perspective, what would they get out of offering to bring you to see a teen therapist? And please, please, please don't say,
well, a happier kid.
All parents, for the most part, want that. There's lots of paths to a happier kid. Don't think about it from how it benefits you. Think about how it benefits them. All right, so now that you've got your list down of what it is that you want to say, you got to think about how you're going to say it to them. So that's where man comes in. M stands for staying mindful of yourself and others. So remember with the R one, we were talking about thinking about it from the parent's perspective, not your perspective. This is important here too. So you want to make sure that you are in a good, healthy, emotional state where you can hang in there and talk about this stuff in a gentle, respectful tone. If you can't do that, use your coping skills and come back. Also, making sure that just because it's a good time for you doesn't mean that it's a good time for the other person. So asking their permission, saying like, hey, is now a good time? I wanted to talk with you about something. You want to make sure that they have the time, care, and attention that this conversation deserves. Especially, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and guess that it's really important to you if you're taking the time to watch this video. So you want to make sure that it's important to them too. A stands for appearing confident. So I would highly recommend maybe practicing what it is that you want to say, or even going in there prepared, having it written down on a piece of paper, letting your parents know that you have thought through this and that you have planned ahead. It's going to help them take you more seriously. Now, of course, it's not always a guarantee, but it can help. And when you do talk to them, make sure to make eye contact. You don't want to just avoid. You want to speak up. You want to use your voice. Again, clear is kind here, and that applies to your tone and the way that you present yourself. N stands for negotiate. I don't necessarily mean about bartering and like sitting down at the conference table and like, okay, what are you going to give me sort of a thing. I mean being willing to stay open to other considerations and possibilities. Maybe you want to see a specific therapist, but your parents don't agree with that style of therapy, but they're willing to take you to another therapist. stay open to it and consider ahead of time what it is that you're willing to flex on and what you're not. If you guys are kind of stuck in a standstill where you really want to see a therapist and your parents aren't totally in agreement with that, you can also use the strategy of what we call turning the tables, which is literally to say to your parents, so I'm really wanting to see a therapist. You don't seem totally sold on the idea. What do you think that we should do about this? Now, of course, your parents can pull the ultimate parent card and say, well, nothing, I'm the parent. Totally a possibility. I can't control your parents. You can't control your parents. But you might be surprised that they might be willing to consider it in 2 weeks, or let's talk to your pediatrician first, or why don't we try this out first? Be gentle, hang in there, stay kind, and eventually your parents will either come around and understand that this can be beneficial, or you will become a certain age where you yourself can make these choices for yourself. Until then, if you are struggling with having your parents take you and your mental health seriously as a teenager, I highly recommend that you watch the video on your screen right over here. And if you found the information in this particular video useful and helpful, please share it. You never know who you could be helping. Thanks for watching.